point in their lives will have it. I'm really hoping that these are the two mysteries. That is without Malika, which would, I think, have been and those two boys will be interesting when it does happen. Which means Malika's still somewhere here as well. I'll have to put off searching for her until this afternoon, I suspect. And we'll try and find her this afternoon. I need to make sure I know where she's going and where she is. So there we go. Not girls, not Malika's boys most likely. And finishing off their tiny Tommy gazelle baby. One of them definitely got more than the other. Here you go. Okay, as these two scrap over what's left of their meal, let's go back and rejoin Taylor with the lions who are searching for their next meal.
Well, hopefully they'll make another attempt, Jamie. It was a fairly good attempt. It was quite cool watching the youngsters get involved. And, my opinion is starting to change more and more. I watch lions. And often we sit and we say typically lions only start joining in at the hunt from, a year to a year and a half. But the amount of times that I've actively seen young cubs of just a few months old, yes, they're not really putting any effort into it, or they're not making a difference or a contribution to the hunt. But for them, it's great to learn, something like that at such a young age. There the rest of them are. The other three are still tucked away. They're hidden in the lugger. They didn't want to come down. Well, they obviously were told to stay. So, we had that amazing sighting. The first time I'd ever really seen it happen was down at Djuma at Vuyatela Dam, where the Nkuhuma cubs were jumping on the back of that young buffalo calf that one of the adults had brought down. And it was just interesting to see how, they'd basically try and half suffocate the buffalo calf, that it was weak enough that it couldn't quite get away. It all sounds very cruel. But then the youngsters were to see. And now this morning, after seeing one of those young cubs actually run and try and sort of herd the warthog back towards one of the adults, was pretty spectacular and really amazing that we get to see things like this. So it's quite cool that lions of such a young age are really getting involved in what's going on. But they look pretty relaxed right now. I think they ran quite a bit, a little bit tired. Now that I'm closer to them, because we were quite far back as we were watching them hunt, they don't look particularly thin. They've got little bellies on them. Now, Andy, you're wondering what is the difference between the Mara and the Mara Triangle? Okay, well, we're in the Mara Triangle at the moment, and I suppose you could look at it like let's do it like the Sabi Sands for an example, because you guys are all familiar with the greater Kruger. So you have the Kruger National Park, which is this, she's going to do a big yawn, which is essentially like the Masai Mara National Reserve where Jamie is. So let's say that's like the Kruger National Park. Then around the Masai Mara National Reserve and around the Kruger National Park, you have all these private concessions. So in South Africa, we have the Timbavati, we have the Sabi Sand, where Scott's driving around, where Tristan's driving around. Well, Tristan's on walk, sorry. And then here you have the Mara Triangle, then you have the Mara North Conservancy, and it goes on and on and on. So that's essentially the differences. But it's quite cool though. It's really nice. Again, unfenced. There's no fences between any of the areas here. There's not even a fence between us and Tanzania. So the lions can go down into the Serengeti if they wanted to. Look at all those flies gathering on her face. Quite a common sight with all the animals, in fact, mainly on the ones that like to wallow in mud. So you do see a lot more flies and parasites and things on buffalo, but particularly flies are getting all the moisture. So they will sit around the eyes of the lions, around the nose of the lion, and it's a bit of a nuisance. But she's managing well. I would be shaking my head round and round and round. I would not be happy with all those flies. Perhaps they're not biting her. Some of them bite quite sore too. normally bite their ears. Now, Gemma, you're wondering, why do some lions have flies on their faces and others don't? I'm pretty sure if we were close enough, we'd be able to see the fly sitting on the other lions. So if you might find if one lion is particularly dirty, say it's just devoured a carcass, you might find more flies on that one, obviously because there's more things for the flies to eat. So it just depends. But you see there, she's now annoyed, and as she grooms herself, she'll wipe her face and clean it, but the flies will still go back there. You can't stop flies. You see flies on all sorts of animals. And of course, sometimes you get to see the big engorged ticks on lions, but lions are particularly good at grooming themselves. The cats typically are. They do spend quite a bit of their day. And you can see, you can't actually hear it. Sometimes you can hear when a lion is grooming itself. That tongue is so rough. No, it's not quite loud enough today, I'm afraid. Even though she's quite close to us, we won't be able to hear it. But not as muddy as those young cubs, so that also says to me that those youngsters were quite spritey this morning and playing around and tumbling in the mud and in the wet grass, and probably just watch from the sidelines as these girls went about their day. Well, she's got quite a big belly, doesn't she? I need to try and see the others. They're too far away to see what they actually look like. So I'm sure she's going to move back towards the rest of the lions. Right, well, we're not going to go anywhere. We're going to stick with these lions, I think. Might as well sit and see how it all plays out. Tristan, as you know, is on bushwalk, and he's been solving many mysteries. So let's go back down to him.
Well, Taylor, we've been trying to solve mysteries. We're still on the mystery of where our elephants have gone. So far, the last tracks we had were cutting into this block just to the northern side of Twin Dams, and so there's no sign of Twin Dams itself. So now we're just trying to check through the block and see. We heard them in this area, so they can't be too far away. It must just be somewhere in this general vicinity, but it's kind of quite dense, quite thick where we're heading, and I wonder if they maybe haven't turned to go towards Treehouse Dam for water. I'm surprised, though, because Twin Dams is right here, and so you would have a situation where you'd think that these ellies would just drink at Twin Dams rather than go to Treehouse. But now, I've been looking everywhere for insects this morning, and I've come up with nothing. I've been trying really hard to find them. I'm always love to kind of look at all the little beetles and insects and things that we get out here, and spiders, but it seems as though everybody is hiding this morning. Maybe it's the weather conditions, maybe the bit of rain yesterday. Everybody's decided to kind of sleep in and haven't come out yet. And Herbie and I were discussing it, that the Waltherias this year have really had very little in the way of insect life on them. Last year they were a hive of activity. There was literally sort of caterpillars and butterflies and beetles and all kinds of things on them. This year seems as though not very much at all. It's a situation where we've had very few insects on them at all, and we've had nothing in the way of kind of the life that we had last year. And I don't know if it's because we're still so very dry, we haven't had as much rain as we maybe had at this sort of same point last year. It's very difficult to say. You know, at the end of the day, we don't really know why these things happen. Now, I was just coming to check some elephant dung. This is also a great place to try and find insects, and we were talking about dung earlier, so why not just come and have a look. And so this dung is not from the herd that we're tracking at the moment. This is a little bit older. You can see it's been broken apart quite a bit. Lots and lots of marulas in it, as we would expect for this time of the year. Whoopsie, that one fell. Hold on a second, I've got to try to find another one that will actually stay on the stick. So there we go. That's just the skin of the marula. You can see this is very, very difficult for the elephant to digest. So they pop them in, crunch on them with these big, broad teeth. That then splits it open, pops the seed out with the flesh and all the juice, and then this goes through the gut without being processed too much. But you'll find other insects will come and feed off this. So insects will go into the dung and feed off even these little sort of skins. There's still nutrients to be had by a number of insects, and so you still will find them. Interesting to see, though, how in this area the marulas don't seem to be dropping fruit that are ripe just yet. If I go, well, when I was further south of us, down near sort of the southern parts of Kruger, all the marulas are starting to drop and the fruits are very big and ripe already. So it just goes to show that rainfall does affect the size of marulas as well. But no insects in there either. So onwards, Senzo, we shall keep trying to see what we can find. I'm just checking around in all of our bushes and things, and well, there's not very much at all. Right, well, we're going to keep trying to forge forward, try and find some insects. Hopefully we find the ellies as well. And while we do all of that, let's go across to Jamie, who's still sitting with her spotted friends.
Okay, so while Tristan tries to solve the mysteries as to, well, the mystery of where the elephants have gone, we are solving the mystery slowly of who these cheetah are. Now, that is the last of the little Thompson's gazelle that they caught, consuming it right down to the bones. Now, for animals like this, catching a young animal is an absolute boon for them, because most of the time they are actually able to eat the bones as well, or at least part of the bones. And that, of course, provides extra nutrients, because as a young animal, obviously the bones, while certainly calcified in certain respects at the age of that baby Tommy, are still quite soft in places. So they can crack them open. Even an animal like a cheetah that doesn't have the same jaw strength of a hyena or a lion or a leopard can still crack open the bones and get to the nutrients that are inside them. So you'll find that where baby animals are caught, nothing is wasted. Absolutely everything is eaten, which is what we've seen with these two boys. One of them definitely got more than the other. Oh, we're standing. Let's get a quick screenshot of this. No, don't turn. Okay, it's fine. We'll get a right profile. There we go. We can zoom in on that one. Let's get a profile of the spots. Okay, now if you could stop walking, that would be great. No, okay. But send screenshots through on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. There we go. Not ideal, but better than nothing, and then we'll be able to use them in future for ID purposes. So there we go. The way that you identify cheetah is ideally with a side-on shot like this, so that you can compare the spot patterns to previous pictures. Now turn to the left. No, that's the right, you silly cheetah. Other way. No? Okay, fair enough. And flop. What a belly you've got. I think this is your second breakfast of the day. That's what I think. Kirsty says I didn't say please to the cheetah, and that's why it didn't turn, which is probably fair enough. I will them to do. I understand. Hey boy, look at your belly. Whoever they are, they've done well. For the breakup and the times that we're going black screen, I'm just getting used to the differences in different vehicles. So I'm driving Brent's car at the moment, and it obviously doesn't have quite the same, or doesn't enjoy the same areas as Mila does. Okay, we're going to sit with our cheetah until the researchers get here. Let's jump back across the Mara River, rejoin Taylor with her hungry lions.
Hungry lions is what we sort of have. Now, Craig and I have just been sitting here and we've been discussing the possibilities of this lioness being pregnant. Well, we don't really know. We know that one lioness doesn't have cubs, and it's a bit hard to say because the other two are so far away, I can't really compare their bellies. But we'll see. And when she does get up, she does look rather large. She's a big lioness anyway. She's sitting so close to the car. She's maybe only, 5 meters away from us, 6 meters away from us. Not quite as close to the jackals, but she's quite happy to just, sit right on top of us, really. And that's such a lion thing to do. And a cheetah, especially on a hot day when your car is casting a shadow. They will not second guess going to sit in the shadow of your car. So for those of you that are worried about our safety, you don't need to. We promise you we're fine, we're good. As long as I don't get out and try and pet this lion or try and call it over, we'll be fine. She'll just ignore us. Now, just as you left us, actually just as we were linking, you're linking away from us, we heard another lion. Well, we heard this other lion, and we heard a soft contact call, in fact. We don't know where it is, and I think it's one of the other lionesses. They're all very excited by it. We'll see if we can hear it again. Now, Norman, you're wondering if there's a way to age a lion. It's difficult. If they're kind enough to open up their mouths for you, you can use their teeth. That's quite a good way. Obviously, the whiter their teeth are, the younger they are, the more yellow and stained and chipped they are, the older they would tend to be. You can look at the ears as well. Some lions get very tatty ears as they get older, but again, if they've had a very tough upbringing within the pride, I have seen youngsters with torn ears too. So you kind of got to use a little bit of everything, all the things I'm about to tell you, and then of course just experience. So you can see she's got very tattered ears, quite a bit. And she's not a young lioness. I would say she's around maybe 7 years old or so, somewhere around 7, 8 years old. So she's moving on. She's a mature girl. And then, you can use the spots. You know how we always say when lion cubs are born, we see them, they're covered in those beautiful spots, and she's got a couple still left on her, and they tend to fade with age, but again, some never lose them. For instance, like this lioness here. She'll probably have these little spots on her legs for quite some time, and some are more spotty. Oh, because she's opening her mouth though, just slightly. Let's see. So you can see her teeth are slightly yellow. Looks like she's missing some of the smaller ones there. Yeah, so that's why I think she's a bit of an older girl. An experienced, wise lady, shall we say, not old. And then the others, I'm not sure. But I don't know if anybody really knows the age of these lionesses. And if you do, please feel free to correct me. You're more than welcome to #SafariLive. If you've got any data or anything like that, or any research that's been done. And yes, we can figure it out. But all three of them seem to be mature. They don't seem to be any youngsters. Well, you were with Tristan earlier, and he was trying to do some investigating. So let's go back across to Nancy Drew. Perhaps he's going to turn into Tristan the ballerina.
Taylor McCurdy, full of beans this morning, as I would expect after her trip to the ocean, where she had some downtime, so I'm not surprised that she's being full of nonsense this morning. But as you can see, we are finding slowly but surely signs of insects, at least. We might not have found an insect just yet, but we have found signs that some have been here. Now, this sort of ball of material that you see is called an ootheca. Now, oothecas are egg sacs for praying mantis. That is what that is, and you can actually see inside there is a number of tiny, tiny little eggs. So even though you see one sort of sac that is like this, and you think to yourself, well, maybe it's just one insect, there is actually hundreds of little mantids that are inside there. So if you look at inside, there's tiny little round white spots. So those are all little eggs that are inside this particular structure. And it's a sort of silky structure that is, foamy structure that is kind of put around those eggs, and then it hardens into this sort of ball of substance, and it's much like the foam-nest tree frogs. Now, it's quite firm. If you poke it, it doesn't exactly squash or anything like that. It is definitely still able to withstand some sort of abrasive, action around it. Now, the interesting thing about this one is it looks as though it's been eaten open. Now, that could be from the little praying mantis. As it's hatched, they start to eat their way out, and they start to then move up and away from this area. But I see a number of eggs that look like they haven't hatched, so I wonder if maybe some sort of predator has come in and has been able to figure it out and has gone in. Now, I don't know of any predators that actively open up the oothecas and go in and get them, but you never know. Maybe a little hole would develop, and then things like ants would be able to get in there and try and sort of grab all of these hatching little mantids. Or there's just a situation where some of them ate their way out and other eggs just didn't hatch. At the end of the day, that's why they lay so many, is to try and get as many out as possible. So that's very, very cool. Now, unfortunately, our elephants have crossed south. You can see they were feeding right here. Very, very fresh signs that they've been feeding, but they have moved south. I just heard them just south of us on the other side of the boundary, which is unfortunate. So we're going to carry on. We're going to look for more little weird and wonderful things, and while we do that, let's go back to Jamie and her mystery cheetah.
So, while the elephants disappear off south, the banded mongoose that we've just spotted, I think, are very glad that the cheetah are moving. Everything ties in beautifully. So there we go. They've watched the cheetah move away. The cheetah are now about to arrive for their third breakfast, or at their third breakfast. There is screenshot opportunities, by the way, for spots, but we'll get to that in a sec. They're about to go and gate crash the balloon breakfast. Really, they are about to go and gate crash the balloon breakfast. Imagine sitting, having your breakfast, you've been on a hot air balloon in the Mara, you've landed, and now all of a sudden 2 cheetah come strolling in. Really doesn't get better. I agree. Michael's been comparing, thank you Michael by the way, comparing our spot patterns to Malika boys, and he's not getting a match. We won't get a match. Relatively, these boys actually to me are, I didn't recognize them immediately, and I second guessed myself because it seemed so peculiar that we'd have 2 sets of young males in exactly the same place. But it just goes to show that one should never actually jump to any conclusions when it comes to, especially cheetah, moving about in an area, because young males like this have no defined territory. They'll certainly want to stay out of the way of the musketeers, and they are well away. They're probably about 5 kilometers away from where I left the musketeers yesterday. But thanks, Michael, for doing that. I'm glad we have at least confirmed that we don't have Malika's 2 boys. So now, the mystery of who they are and where they've come from obviously just become independent, and when young males become independent, they can cover enormous distances. They disperse. Oh dear, have you just realized that there's people there? Oh dear, yes, that's people having their breakfast. You can't share. You can't have any. Back past the poor mongoose, just to give them their second fright of the day. Because Martina, yes, cheetah might hunt mongoose. They don't really. It's not much of a meal for them. It's also quite a smelly meal. But they, like any cat, that chase instinct is there. If those mongoose start to run, they will start to chase. Even full as they are. Yes. Did you not get an invitation for breakfast? Don't worry, me neither. So don't you stress. And back we go, straight towards the poor mongoose family. It's usually young cats that will hunt mongoose. The older cats tend... Oh, now we've just realized that there's mongoose there. Older cats tend to not bother with them. They've got the experience and the wisdom to know that it's not worth it. But young cats just want to chase things. So now the mongoose remain frozen. What to do, what to do? There's heads everywhere popping up. They look like little termite mounds. Okay. Well, our cheetah are going to sit down. Well, since our cheetah have decided to sit down, to quote Kirsty directly, we're going back across to Nancy Drew, who hasn't found elephants but has found a giraffe.
Oh my goodness, apologies everybody. Sorry, that's me jumping around now. I don't know what's up with the gremlins today. They're really quite rude. No, I don't know if this lioness is pregnant. I actually don't think so. I think she's just got a bit of a belly from something that she's eaten before. Done a big rollover. Look at all that muscle in her rump, even going down to her tail. She's really a big girl. Now, then here, swag it around for us so we can see. You're going to get up. I think she's going to go and rejoin the others now. We'll have to see. I don't know, that belly. Not quite sure. We'll watch her though. We'll keep a close eye on her and see what happens, what develops. Off she goes. March. Actually, now she's marching in the opposite direction. The others are all completely flat. Perhaps a drink of water? Maybe she's responding to the other calls from that lion that we heard in the distance. It definitely was a female. It wasn't a male. It was a very sort of soft, sort of just trying to get someone's attention kind of a call. We'll see where she goes now. Now, Guide Monkey, wondering if there's been any land predators spotted catching fish. Well, funny that you use the word spotted, because yes, there are many leopards in the southern sands that, the Sabi sands, goodness gracious, what's wrong with me today, that catch fish and terrapins and things like that. So it's not uncommon. And even a young lion, if there were a catfish in a drying up puddle, they'd go for something like that. Most certainly. So it's actually not as uncommon as we think. Lions and leopards will catch fish whenever the opportunity is around. And like I said, particularly, say, maybe a big cat that's injured and is not able to hunt like it should and catch a decent meal, they'll go for something like that. A young and inexperienced cat, most certainly. But I haven't seen it. It's something that I really want to watch. But it's been documented quite a bit. Right, let me quickly reposition. I think she's just heading to her little mound. Okay, well, we're going to try and get a better position. Perhaps we'll go check up on our jackal pups, which aren't too far away from here. Scott, however, has spent most of the morning with Thandi and her little fur ball. Let's go take another look.
We certainly have, and not too much has changed since you were last with us. Thandi's still snoozing in the same spot, and no further sign of where the cub is probably doing the same thing as its mom, just relaxing after what was a very playful morning. Such a wonderful scene to see a leopard up their most favorite tree, the marula, in this area. And very well done to Herbie, our wonderful tracker, who did a great job in working out where she was yesterday morning. He came back out after our morning walk yesterday and managed to work out exactly where she was, and it's incredible how many wonderful sightings he has provided us with. He's an absolute wizard, and we are incredibly lucky to have him in our team. I'm wondering, I mean, it may even, hazarded a guess that they'll be here for at least 24 hours. It may even be longer than that they stay put in the spot. And let's hope that she heads further into Djuma once these kills are finished, because she is quite close to our eastern boundary. Whereas if she crosses over there, then we're not going to be able to follow her movements. Kathy, you'd like to know, why is it that leopard have got longer whiskers than lions? And I guess it could have something to do with balancing. Whiskers do assist the cats with balance, and because leopards are more prone for climbing and more agile than lions, maybe that is the reason why. What's interesting is that very often it depends on the kind of shot and the lighting, which will help us to establish that leopards in fact do have longer whiskers than lions. It's not always that easy to notice. But that would be my guess, Kathy. Now, we've had a wonderful morning here, but we do have to make space for some other vehicles to enjoy the sighting. So we are going to be moving out and slowly start making our way back to camp. Who knows, maybe we'll find something else interesting along the way. It sounds like Tristan, though, who's still on foot, has found something interesting that he would like to show you.
Indeed I am, Scott. I'm going to have to be on foot for a while longer, because nobody's going to come and fetch me, so we're going to have to use our feet to get back home anyway. But we have found something. Our giraffe has left us, unfortunately. We did have a giraffe earlier, but inside this gall that we find on these silver cluster leaves, so we get a gall which is made by a wasp. This particular gall is made by a wasp, and it's basically a response to the wasp stinging the branch. There's a swelling of the tree effectively in response, and growth hormones are sent, and it then becomes this big sort of gall that you see. But once the wasp leaves, you'll often get other things coming in and looking. And so when we were walking past this particular gall was very, very dry and had popped open. Actually, it had split, and so when I was looking, I could actually see that there's a little spider inside of there. So the spider has repurposed it for its home, and it's spun a little web inside. Unfortunately, when I kind of picked it up, it's so delicate, this particular gall, that it's actually broken further apart. So it's not as sort of closed as it first was, which is a bit of a shame because I didn't want to disturb our spider in any way. But the spider is tucked up inside there. It's got a little web that it's spun all throughout, and it's inside over there. Now, the type of spider that it is, I can't see nicely because it's now come onto the other side, but it looks like an ant spider. So we get these types of spiders that mimic ants, and they have this dark sort of black abdomen, and then it goes to a sort of red head and thorax, and that's very typical of a lot of the ant species here. And when you put them side by side, they can actually look very, very similar. So it looks like one of those. Difficult to see because it's kind of obstructed a little bit by the gall itself and the webbing from my angle, but it definitely does look like one of those. I can't think of what other spider it would be, given that it's got quite a long body as well. The ant spiders tend to have this longish sort of abdomen that comes out with these little legs. Very, very cool to see them, and I haven't seen one in ages, so I'm super happy that we managed to find it. Now, our giraffe was wandering off slowly in a sort of northerly direction, so I'm going to try and see if we can find it. I think I just saw its head kind of bobbing over the tops of the trees, so it shouldn't be too far away. Let's see if we can get a view of it. Can you see it there, baby? No, so Herbie can't see it either. I think it went straight over in front of us. So there's a termite mound here. If maybe we walk towards the termite mound, we can go up onto the top, and we can then sort of climb up there, and maybe we'll get to see it. Now, when I walk through here, this is where I get nightmares, and you might be wondering why I get nightmares here. Well, this is because we are in the very spot that I decided to do a flick-flack out of the vehicle while following wild dogs. So it was somewhere here on my right-hand side. I remember because I saw that termite mound as a last visual before I went flying out of the vehicle and landed on my backside. So this is the same area, and like I say, gives me chills and haunting memories as I think about the sort of process that happened and the things that went on afterwards and the amount of laughs that we've had. I've had so many people that have actually messaged me, people that I haven't seen in years, that somehow came across that clip with chuckling about what happened. So very, very funny. Even I suppose it was something that we could all laugh at, which is very, very cool. It was a month of silliness, actually. Falling out of vehicles, face planting in the mud. We all had our sort of turn at something. I suppose James got off the lightest, I think, out of everybody, and maybe Steve and Noel. They also haven't seemed to have had anything too funny happen to them just yet, but their time will come. It happens to all of us at some point. Right. Now, the termite mound's right here, so we're going to just see if I can see this giraffe quickly. Just going to try and get up for a little bit of height. Here we go. Sense. Now, I believe a lot of you are commenting on the fact that it was very funny when I fell out. Well, I'm glad that we entertained you all because, well, it was, like I say, a funny situation, but in hindsight, it could have been so much worse. It could have been a really bad thing had I landed on a stump or the car had gone over me or Ferg had gone flying off the front of the vehicle. We could have had a lot worse things happen. So it was funny because nothing really happened, and at the end of the day, I suppose, you can only laugh when you get flung from a vehicle following wild dogs. The wild dogs' reaction was the funniest because they just kind of turned around, saw this human going, and then they just trotted off as though nothing had happened. I was quite sort of surprised. Now, you can see from up here why we use a termite mound. It's very, very high, and you can see a lot further than you can when you lower down. And so, unfortunately, our giraffe has disappeared and has moved off somewhere. I'm not quite sure. We'll try and find it again now. So you can see why predators get up here to be able to see what's going on. It's much easier to spot things from up here than it is lower down. Right, Senzo, let's carry on. And while we do that, let's send you back to Jamie and the lovely, beautiful spots.
So while Tristan aims to get up high, we are slowly actually descending towards one of the valleys. We've still got our two boys. They've dodged the danger of the balloon breakfast site, which I think took them seriously by surprise. The mongoose are happy they can go about their day-to-day business because the cheetah have left. And now they've just got to sleep off some very full bellies and decide where to go next. At this age, they are not yet ready to compete for a territory. They're still a little bit too young, and it remains to be seen where they end up in the future. They're young enough still that they could even accept another young cheetah into the fold and form a coalition with another young male. It happens less commonly with cheetah, but it does happen. Lions, it's much more common, but with cheetah, there's a huge amount of competition surrounding the right to mate with a female, which makes sense. I mean, there's just less female cheetah around than there are female lions, or lionesses as they're more popularly known. So the male lions know they're going to get an opportunity to mate, whereas for male cheetah, that opportunity may never present itself. So it's a balance between having the advantage of numbers to maintain a territory and at the same time, being able to outcompete your coalition buddies in order to mate when that opportunity arises. It's complicated. Right now, I think they're only thinking about perhaps if they could get hold of something for indigestion. And the one that's eaten that entire baby Tommy looks like he's eaten an entire meal to himself. So, while we spend some time, while you think of your next question to ask us on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, and while we sit with these boys, don't forget our primetime series is coming up on the 4th of February, 10 p.m. after, you know what I'm going to say, the big game, in inverted commas. So you can join us then. If you are watching in the States, you will be eligible to enter our Safari Bingo. The prize for one viewer will be a trip for two to somewhere in Africa. So it's something very exciting. Obviously, it works just like regular bingo, except when we see something or say something, you'll be able to tick it off. And if you want to know more details about how you can enter that, you can visit natgeo.com/Safari Live. And now back to our cheetah. It is really exciting. We're very excited about this series. We're looking forward to spending as much possible time with the animals that we're going to. Now, I don't think it takes a genius to figure out that we have a couple of animals that will most likely be the stars of this series. And speaking of the star of the series, let us go and rejoin Scott and the lovely, slightly snarly Thandi.
Yes, thankfully her snarls have seemed to reduce over the morning, and I seriously think that there's a correlation between her cub giving her a hard time and her taking out her frustrations on us. But she seems to have relaxed and a lot less snarly now that the cub has moved off and is taking a snooze somewhere. As you can tell, we didn't have to leave the sighting. Luckily, a spot opened up for us, so incredibly lucky that we've had the entire morning with this leopardess, the large majority of which her cub was very playful, and who knows, maybe before the end of the drive the cub will come out and grace us with its presence again. Now, you did see she just had a nice big yawn, and it may just be a once-off, or she may yawn once or twice more and get up and move. Or she may not yawn and just move immediately. Now, what are your plans? Are you going to have your breakfast now? Or are you merely trying to get more comfortable? Now, I'm guessing that she came up this tree specifically to get away from her cub's playful mood and playful antics, so that she could have some time to rest and relax. It's usually far more comfortable down on the ground as opposed to up on the limbs of the tree, and especially on a cool day like this. I don't think she would have been trying to get the cool breeze up in this marula tree, which is often the case on hot summer days, rather than lying on the thick blanket-like grass. They will get up into the trees where they will naturally be a little bit cooler, possibly not as comfortable, but definitely cooler. I really do hope that she does call out her cub, because it would be wonderful for us to see the cub again, and also for the Djuma guests who are sharing the sighting with us. Good stuff. We are going to now send you back to Taylor McCurdy, all the way up in the Masai Mara. I'm not too sure what she's up to.
So we've got an elephant that was being very rude to us and very rude to a car that passed it before, but it's a young elephant cow. She's on the move though. We know how they like to throw temper tantrums. But she settles down. I gave her a stern talking to, and now she's ignoring everybody and walking away. She was very close to the car, staring at us. And then there's the bigger cow. And a very young calf as well, just moving amongst mama. Just able to see over the grass. But they're heading towards the marsh, like they do every day. Oh, yeah. Come on, little one, keep up. She's having a good old scratch in her eye. It's kind of like what I look like all the time with my hands in my eyes, trying to remove all the bugs that fly into them all the time. It's a lovely day today, though. It's going to be quite warm, I think. So Craig and I are going across the river. We're going to set off, go and fill up our car at Serena, and then we'll make the journey across the Mara River to join Jamie and see what we can find. So hopefully not this afternoon, but tomorrow morning we'll set out, and our aim will be by the end of the show to be with the Black Rock Pride. So there we go. You guys can all be excited, and I bet you won't be able to go to sleep because you're sitting up waiting to hopefully see the Black Rock Pride. So that's the plan for us. So we won't be in the triangle this afternoon. We'll try be on the other side by the time the safari starts. So we won't be seeing too many elephants. We don't see many elephants across the river. They all seem to be this side, where the vegetation is just so lovely and lush. I don't blame them. But let's carry on. I did see some cars gathering quite far away, sort of down that side. So I don't know if anyone has discovered where the Olololo Pride had gone. I couldn't find them, unfortunately. We were hopeless of finding them. Our other lions all went flat and fast asleep. So I thought we'd move on. And then I checked on the jackals. Guess what they were doing? Belly up, also all fast asleep. Right, let's go have a look here. You know what, I didn't even tell you, how rude of me. Right at the beginning of the show, Craig and I saw a black kukul, funny enough, in the grass. Not in my usual spot either, where I've been seeing them when we were looking for the olololos. And we were going to try and get it on camera, but I wasn't sure at first when I saw it. I thought maybe it's a widow bird, and then I drove right up to it and then went, aha, no, it is. It's a black kukul. And of course, as we pointed the camera to it, it flew away, landed in the grass. So there's another spot now where we can keep checking, and hopefully we'll get a much closer sighting of one of those kukuls. I'm just deciding now if I go up on the main road a little bit further to see if I can find where those vehicles were. We'll see though. Right, Tristan, I'm sorry about your new nickname, but I quite like it, and it seems as though Kirst likes it too. So toodaloo if we go down to Nancy Drew.
Taylor Mac, you are starting trouble, and I don't know whether or not to respond, because the last time I responded I ended up being flung from the car, so I'm going to try not. But as you can see, we have another murder taking place. Ants have gotten themselves something. I can't see exactly what it is. It looks like maybe a termite that they've gotten, or something to that effect. The poor thing is being dragged by 4 of them all at once, so they've all got their own little piece, and you see how they're using each other to be able to try and get this little kill to wherever they need to get it to the hole where the nest is, and to try and get it underground. Now I'm going to move my foot out the way, because otherwise we're going to have a bit of a problem. But it amazes me the collective effort and the sort of coordination between ants, that they're able to pull and drag something like this as a group. You can imagine each one would probably want to go its own way, but through pheromones and various other things, they've all kind of working together and being able to carry it. But absolutely amazing to watch how they do it. It's very, very cool. And imagine trying to push, pull and walk sideways all at once. It's very interesting to me how they go about it. But I don't think it's a termite now that I look at it. Difficult to see exactly what it is. It's kind of upside down, so all I can see is that it's got yellowy legs and a fairly silverish body. So I wonder, not really sure to be honest, what that is. Maybe a little termite that they've taken the head off, but I've never seen a termite that color, so I don't know. Let's see, they've stopped to kind of start feeding on it a little bit. Since maybe if we can see, just trying to see what exactly it is. I can't see what it is at all. I honestly have no idea what this little insect is. Either way, it's quite soft and squishy, so it doesn't have an exoskeleton on it. I don't know, but they're going to disappear into the grassy bank there, unfortunately. Very cool to see, though. It's not something you get to see every day. I love watching ants going about their business. They're incredible animals, and the coordination that goes on with them is really quite something. Right, I'm going to start heading back and starting to ponder how I can come back to Taylor and come up with a new nickname for McMuddy, and while I do that, let's go back across to Scotty D and Thandi feeding on the kill.
Yes, as you can see, she is no longer up in the tree, nor is the kill. She has taken it down for easier feeding, really, and I'm quite surprised at what's going on here. Oh, that's a big mouthful of fur. Ugh. That must feel terrible. Sorry, Thandi. Good luck getting that off your tongue. And what surprises me is that she still had half a duiker on the floor. And I guess you would have thought that she would have finished that meal off, considering that it was on the ground and already half consumed, and left this safely up in the tree. But now she's got both kills on the ground, so if a hyena was to come onto the scene now, she would run the risk of losing both carcasses, which obviously doesn't make perfect sense. But maybe she wanted to mix up the duiker with a little bit of waterbuck. They will taste slightly different. I'm not convinced that a leopard will have hugely different kind of preferences with regards to flavors of food, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do have a favorite flavored meat. Ah, interesting. We've got quite a bizarre question. Not bizarre, but just not one that's commonly asked, and that is whether or not I've ever seen a leopard taking a poop up in a tree. And as far as I can remember, X-Ranga, no, I have not seen a leopard doing a poop in a tree. I've seen leopards mating in a tree before, which was quite interesting. One animal that loves to poop up in trees are cheetah, and that's something I learnt with my time spent up in the Masai Mara. Interestingly, a lot of the times they actually like to be vertical while they are pooping, so they kind of half climb up a tree so that their bodies are vertical, and then they do the deed. And not only that, cheetah also like depositing their droppings on elevated structures, be it in the fork of a tree or up on the top of a termite mound. But not so much with the leopards. Ah, there we go, she's finally made it to some meat, having plucked quite a lot of this very furry young waterbuck. It's quite interesting that she's chosen to feed on this portion of the carcass. Usually they start at the rear end. I'm not even too sure where this portion of the carcasses. It's hard to say exactly where it is she's feeding, but it doesn't look like the rear end. Maybe it is. This carcass is all kind of bent and buckled, so hard to be certain exactly where she is feeding on. Looks like quite a bony portion of the carcass. I would love to know the sequence of events that unfolded here. For any of you who may have joined the safari a little bit late this morning, it's important that you know that there are 2 kills in this position. Not only this young waterbuck that she's feeding on now, but also a duiker. What a thing, having 2 kills in one spot. I'm guessing, and of course it is just a guess, that she had the duiker kill up in this tree, and then the waterbuck may have come onto the scene, and then, like most highly opportunistic predators, she would have seized that opportunity. Furthermore, what would have been very interesting to see is the response of the adult waterbucks once she did manage to snipe this youngster, Waterbuck are very large antelope, not well known for defending their prey, but their youngsters rather, that may be caught by predators. But with something as small as a female leopard, it would have been a very, very interesting scene to witness. I'm guessing the adult waterbuck may have given her a little bit of a hard time. But I haven't really seen leopard feed on waterbuck very often, so I don't have a wealth of knowledge with regards to them reacting to leopards sniping their youngsters. Well, we're going to stay put. I'm hoping the sound of these bones cracking is going to wake up the cub and see her bounding back onto the scene. We are going to send you back to Taylor in the Mara, who's just driving about.
Right. Well, we're making our ascent up the escarpment road now to head on home. We're hungry, and we also need to get all prepped for this afternoon. Well, not this afternoon, in a couple of hours we'll be leaving again. Now, there was a question from Colbert about what supplies we need when we head across the river. We need quite a few things, in fact. The most important when you're going across the river with Craig is food. Lots of snacks, all the snacks. I just see Craig smiling and shaking his head now, and it's true because I'm pretty sure Brent says it as well. So all the snacks that you can think of. Obviously water, bottles. We top up at the lodges and things that we stay at. Fuel is an important one. We need to take some petrol with us. That's a goodie. Make sure you've got chargers with you too. So we take lots of chargers. And what else do we take? Permits. We've got to do a variety of paperwork as well when crossing into the Masai Mara National Reserve. So there's a couple of things that you do need, and yes, and high spirits, because sometimes those days can be quite long out there. A good book to read. Yeah, when you're sitting with babysitting cheetah all day long, sometimes a book is quite nice to read. So yeah, there's a few things. Every presenter, every wonderful cameraman, they'll have their own things that they take with them as well. You know, things that you prefer. Like, what do I like taking with? I'm just trying to think now if there's anything in particular. No. Biscuits, chocolate biscuits, and an emergency skipping rope for when you get like 10 minutes to do some exercise very quickly, because sitting in the car all day can be very tiring, as you can imagine. You feel quite lazy, so you've got a skipping rope, you can jump up, do a couple of things quickly, get the blood flowing again. Well, otherwise that's kind of it. And lots of clothes, because I don't know why, every time I go across the river I seem to get filthy, more filthy than I do when I'm this side. And take lots of clothes. Now, Jem video, you're wondering if the smell of food from camp will attract any animals? Us, yeah? Sure, I promise you, my senses smell for bacon kilometers away, and it's with all the guides. It's amazing. Unless you're vegetarian, then that probably doesn't appeal to you. But no, not necessarily. When we have a lot of sweet things out, the bees come, which is a problem because there's a few team members who are allergic to bees, so to hide things like honey and sugar and all those wonderful things. But no, I haven't noticed anything coming around. I'm really surprised, touch wood, and I hope I don't jinx us all, that the baboons don't come and raid our camp. Hi warthogs, look how big you've got. They've grown. Have a quick look at them. Well, no, the only animals with food, the smell of food really attracts is us. And especially in South Africa, you can, when we're down at Djuma, as soon as you start driving around on quarantine, you can normally smell what Amanda or Happiness has been cooking up. I wonder what's for breakfast today. And I wonder what snacks they're making us. They always make us nice snacks. Yeah, they're not hanging around. You're quite right, Kirst. Kirst said to me now that the warthogs heard me talking about bacon and they're getting out of here. I actually don't think I've seen warthogs run away so quickly in my entire life. You know, insert fake laugh here. Right. All the animals are gone from the escarpment though. Those lions did a good job at chasing them away. Just a couple of zebra and things scattered about, but nothing more than that in those warthogs. Right, well, it'll be fun. Craig and I will see you out and across the other side of the river, so get excited for that. I'm going to send you down to Scotty D, who's not the cheetah man of Africa anymore, but the leopard king of South Africa.
Okie dokes, thanks Taylor. And I must say I am very, very envious of the crew up in the Mara and their trips across to cheetah heaven. And I wish Taylor and Craig all the best with not only their trip across there, but also their planning of their picnics. Now, before the safari comes to a close, it is very important that I remind all of you guys about a very exciting game that we are going to start playing on Sunday the 4th of February. And we are going to be playing a Safari Live bingo where some of you will be lucky enough, or one of you rather, will be lucky enough to win a trip to Africa. Now, it's important that I just remind everyone that this competition is only applicable to citizens of the US of A. So any of you living in other countries, I do apologize. And for any Americans who would like a little bit more regarding the rules and regulations for the Safari Live bingo, please go check out natgeo.com/Safari Live, and you will find all the info there you need to start preparing yourself for that exciting game. Well, what a morning it's been. I feel hugely, hugely privileged to have been able to spend the morning with you guys and Thandi and her cub. As I'm sure a lot of you will agree, we had an incredible sighting this morning of that young, playful and slightly rebellious cub. I'm not sure who will be heading back here this afternoon, but be sure to know that there's a strong likelihood that this leopard and her cub will still be out and about. Well done to all of you guys for joining in and sending through your questions, as well as to all of the Safari Live crew involved in this morning's safari. We will see you all next time.